At first glance, The Dreadful looks like a quiet medieval horror film about grief, faith, and survival. But beneath its slow pacing and eerie atmosphere lies a much darker story about greed, manipulation, and the thin line between good and evil. And ironically, the film itself can feel a little dreadful to watch. Not because it's bad, but because almost nothing happens for long stretches of time. It's a very slow-burning psychological horror, where the tension builds quietly instead of relying on jump scares or big action scenes. For some viewers, that atmosphere is fascinating, but for others, it can feel frustratingly slow. But once you understand the deeper symbolism behind the cursed helmet, the manipulation between the characters, and Anne's final act of freedom, the story becomes much more interesting than it first appears. So let's break down what actually happens in The Dreadful, and what the film might really be trying to say. The film follows Anne and her mother-in-law Morwen, two poor women trying to survive in a small medieval village while waiting for Anne's husband Seamus to return from the Wars of the Roses. Anne is kind, introspective, and deeply religious. Morwen, on the other hand, is rougher and far more ruthless. She believes survival requires doing whatever it takes. When Seamus's childhood friend Jago returns from the war, he brings devastating news. He claims that he and Seamus deserted the battlefield, but that Seamus was later killed by thieves. This confirms a strange dream Anne recently had about her husband dying. Soon after, Anne begins seeing a mysterious armoured knight wandering in the woods. While Anne struggles with grief, Jago slowly begins to court her. He comforts her and suggests the knight she's seeing might simply be a real person. But Morwen immediately distrusts him, warning Anne that Jago has always envied Seamus and wants to steal his life, including his wife. At the same time, the darker side of their world begins to appear. Morwen secretly murders survivors from a nearby shipwreck, and even kills a travelling friar to steal his relics. Anne is horrified, but fear and loyalty keep her silent. Eventually, Anne and Jago grow closer and sleep together. Jago urges her to leave Morwen and start a new life with him. But Anne feels trapped. Morwen frightens her with religious warnings about demons and the Knights of Hell, claiming Anne will be punished if she abandons her duty to her dead husband. Things take a darker turn when Morwen encounters the mysterious knight in the woods. When the knight collapses in agony, clawing at his helmet, she kills him for his purse. Only then does the horrifying truth emerge. Underneath the helmet is her own son, Seamus. Earlier during the war, Seamus had killed another knight and stolen the helmet as loot. But the helmet was cursed. The moment he wore it, it began burning into his skin and slowly corrupting him. The curse twisted his body and mind, turning him into the monstrous figure wandering the woods. In other words, Seamus wasn't simply killed in war, he was destroyed by the very greed and violence that war had awakened in him. Jago later confesses that he knew more than he admitted. He lied about the details of Seamus's death because he hoped Anne would choose him instead. By reshaping the story, he tried to manipulate her into taking Seamus's place. Morwen, meanwhile, becomes cursed herself when she tries to wear the helmet to frighten Anne. It burns into her skin just as it did to Seamus, revealing her own sins and cruelty. Anne finally confronts her and strikes the helmet with a cross, symbolically breaking its hold. Anne is shocked when she sees Morwen's face covered in burns and blisters. A once fierce and rough Morwen is suddenly very frightened. As the helmet is split in half, the curse is seemingly broken, and the evil spirits are released from it. But it seems the helmet has magically put itself together again, indicating that one can never truly escape from their own evil. Anne quickly closes the door, but soon after there is a knock with the helmet standing outside, tempting her to wear it. But she resists, telling a trembling Morwen that she should not be afraid, which is the last thing she sees before going blind. As if Morwen has seen her as an angel. In the end, Anne finds Jago on the beach and tells him that she will not belong to him or anyone. Suddenly, his gentle demeanour becomes violent, showing how he didn't really love her but wanted to own or control her. Anne returns home, where Morwen is completely dependent on her and has no say anymore. Anne has changed her hairstyle and does not wear the religious head covering anymore. This may suggest how she has broken away from the church and chose to follow her own path. She goes to the woods, where she listens to the helmet with admiration. It's almost as if she shows appreciation for it, for helping her gain her freedom. This shows how even in the Middle Ages, some women didn't want to become trapped in society's expectations of them. The film deals with irony. Anne was the one who was seen as gentle and overshadowed by her husband, a cruel Morwen. But in the end, Anne had shown her true strength by resisting desire, and Morwen became weak and trapped. Sometimes the ones with true strength don't always show it on the outside at first. Anne was able to face the helmet without fear. The helmet represents one's inner desire and greed, and their desire to be wealthy by stealing and murdering was the very thing that destroyed Morwen and her son. Thank you for watching.